foundations of education in a multicultural society. Today's topic is teamwork from our text, Diversity Consciousness. Our author shares several learning objectives listed on the first page of this chapter. Please take the time to become familiar with them. Our author says a team is simply a number of people who are involved in a cooperative effort. He says that each of us belongs to many teams. Sometimes we are put on teams and have no choice in the matter. At other times we may join voluntarily or even create new teams. Your instructor, for example, might put you on a team in class. You may choose to form study groups or join support groups. Additionally, there are numerous teams in the workplace and in the community. These teams might focus on your responsibilities at work, recreational interests, and community activities. The key thing to remember is that you cannot avoid teams. They are a part of everyday life. The author goes on to tell us that, as stated repeatedly in this book, diversity means more than differences in race and gender. When people talk about teams in the workplace, the concept of diversity includes many other differences such as age, personality, leadership style, job function, job position, and tenure. Your success on any job-related team will depend in part on your ability to relate to all kinds of people. The author tells us that technology and globalization are also altering the composition of teams. Technological advances are making it possible for teams to overcome geographic barriers in an instant. The ability to communicate clearly and quickly and to work together from anywhere in the world, anytime, provides teams with a distinct competitive advantage. Our author describes teamwork as the coordinated effort by a group of persons working together toward a common goal. And he says that it has been found to be an effective way of improving academic achievement in schools. The author points to a study where it was determined that a lot of academic loners are suffering in silence, and that when they are left to their own devices in terms of studying, they were not being successful, but found when we put these groups of learners together and they support each other in a cooperative way, their academic achievement improves. The author also points to what is called a jigsaw method. And in this method, classes were divided into teams of 6 students. Students in each group were racially and academically mixed, and each day individuals in each group were assigned one of 6 subtopics. After learning about that segment of the lesson, each student taught the other group members. The results showed a decrease in prejudice and an increase in self-esteem among students in the jigsaw groups. So putting students together and giving them an opportunity to have a voice and to hear their peers, but also be heard by their peers, can be a powerful way to cement learning, but also to reduce prejudice. The author ends this segment by telling us that Davidio's research reveals that when we categorize someone as belonging to another group, we tend to see that group as more homogeneous than our own. These findings show that the promise of dealing with prejudice indirectly, that is, getting people who normally would not work or socialize together to collaborate on some project at school or anywhere else for that matter. So we need to keep in mind that teams can be a powerful way to reduce. The author tells us that teams, particularly those made up of people from diverse backgrounds, are proliferating in the workplace. The accent on teamwork in the workplace is a surprise to many students. In college, the focus is typically on individual success and competition. According to Judy Blair, Vice President of Recruitment and Career Development for American Management Systems, the teamwork focus is often an adjustment from school where achievement tends to be individual and aimed at getting the best grade. Although individual contribution matters in the workplace, the teamwork element is also key. Someone may be responsible for a particular aspect of work on a project, collaboration and cooperation with others on the project is key. The author goes on to tell us that teamwork is not sold as a technique for promoting human relations. Rather, it is viewed as just good business. The author also tells us that from top management to workers in offices and factories, people who are adept at working in teams can pool their talents and be more productive. This is called synergy, the concept that members of a team interacting cooperatively will accomplish more than if they act alone. Then Stephen Covey, in his book, The Seven Habits of Highly Effective People, he tells us that he used this word to describe a problem-solving approach. So for him, synergy is about getting together to solve problems. And the author says we should think of a time when you and other people were able to brainstorm about an issue or problem. What you came up with as a group was in all probability more creative and useful than anything originally proposed by a single person. The author describes a virtual team as a group of people that work across space, time, and organizational boundaries with the links strengthened by webs of communication technologies. He goes on to say that virtual teaming allows our individual and group creativity to flourish by enhancing our opportunity to express ourselves. He says when we communicate on the internet, individual characteristics such as appearance, religion, and social class may be kept invisible. Our author goes on to say that according to research in the field of communications, the physical distance of team members and their use of electronic media can affect relationships. He says when we communicate from geographically dispersed locations, we sometimes can become desensitized to the values, goals, and competencies of individuals. He tells us that we really need to work hard at keeping these virtual teams bonded, and he offers several strategies for keeping the lines of communication open. Take a look at the 6 strategies on your own. The author asks, as part of your education, have you been taught how to work with people who commit themselves to a common purpose? Is your education providing you with opportunities to develop and practice teaming skills? And he says many employers believe that there is a mismatch between the skills that students need when they enter the workforce and those they learn in college. He goes on to share with us several examples from a variety of educational training programs that exist to help people learn and develop teamwork skills. Take, for example, the Marines. From raw recruits to senior officers, they go through a 3-day test. The test emphasizes values, morality, and above all, teamwork. Marines are evaluated on their ability to work continuously as a team for 54 hours. They stand or fall as a group. Another example can be found in our Foundations of Education in a Multicultural Society course, where students are put together in learning communities, learning how to work together to solve a common problem. The author tells us that there are some essential skills for real, true teamwork, and these include communication, conflict management, empathy, self-evaluation, as well as leadership. The author helps us to distinguish between being mindful and mindless. He says that mindfulness raises our consciousness and awareness, as opposed to mindlessness. This blots out intuition, and much of the world around us is similar to having cultural blinders on. As we think more about the skill of self-evaluation, the author tells us, although total self-awareness is virtually impossible, we need to ask ourselves some questions that focus on how we see ourselves and others. Some of the questions we might ask are there parts of myself that I do not share with others? How do my emotions, values, and experiences affect my ability to work with other team members? And how do I handle conflict and change? Our author says that high-performance teams do not just happen. They evolve over time and require people who possess certain talents a wide range of diversity skills, a common vision, and a strong commitment to the team. They develop something that Bandura refers to as collective efficacy, where people share a belief that they are capable of effecting change and making a difference. He goes on to say that research has shown that it is not enough simply to include diverse and capable people on a team. High performance and low performance teams differ in how they manage diversity. When well managed, diversity becomes a productive resource for the team, but when ignored, diversity can be a problem that can diminish the team's productivity. He says, think of the storyline from The Wizard of Oz. In a training video for a business, a management expert analyzes the team that Dorothy built. Her team consists of a scarecrow, a lion, and a tin man. Each character has a different talent. Together, they delegate tasks, take risks, establish trust among themselves, and pursue a common goal. At your leisure, please review these 10 proven strategies for building high-performance teams. Strategies that range from getting to know each other to periodically assessing team performance. Our author says that numerous obstacles can detract from the synergy of a team. Some can be traced to the thinking and behaviors of individual members. Others originate outside the team. Obstacles such as these that follow on our slide compromise a team's potential. One of the obstacles the author talks about is social values, and he says that teamwork can be difficult in a society that stresses the importance of individualism and competition. Common sayings in the United States such as make your own breaks, look out for number one, support values that may undermine teamwork. As an example, U.S. workers are sometimes reluctant to share their ideas because they fear that someone else might get the credit. Contrast this kind of thinking with the African saying, one finger cannot pick up a grain. Our author defines conflict as the struggle that results when two or more parties perceive a difference or incompatibility in their interests, values, or goals. It can occur between individuals as well as among and within groups, communities, and societies. He says that every time we interact with someone, there is the potential for conflict. He goes on to say that traditionally conflict has been viewed as a negative in the United States. It is seen as something that stands in the way of communication and teamwork. Therefore, people assume that we should avoid conflict at all costs. Although conflict can have negative consequences, it can have positive outcomes as well. At school, conflict can increase your achievement by motivating you to work harder. It can also be a learning experience that deepens your understanding of a problem. The author goes on to say that the effect that conflict has on us depends largely on how well we manage it. He says that conflict management is the process by which conflict is dealt with in an effective and constructive manner. He goes on to say that people who manage conflict well at school, work, and home have an advantage. The issue is not whether people experience conflict, but how they experience it. Whereas conflict frustrates and stymies some people, others seem to take it in stride and even thrive in it. He goes on to say that learning to deal effectively with conflict is a skill that expands both your diversity consciousness and your chances for success. It builds your self-respect and increases your confidence in yourself. Your interpersonal skills benefit as well. These include your ability to communicate, cooperate, negotiate, manage your anger, and exercise self-control. In addition, working through conflict in a constructive way helps you to develop your cognitive skills. You will become a better problem solver by developing your understanding of the sources, dynamics, and effects of conflict. Our author says that approaches to conflict management sometimes require different situations for different approaches, and he maintains that flexibility is key. He goes on to say that sometimes situations situations call for strong responses, and sometimes the response needs to be more gentle. Our author says the setting, as well as the people and their relationships to each other, need to be taken into consideration. The author also goes on to say that cultural differences need to be taken into consideration as well. Although we should not jump to conclusions about people because of their cultural backgrounds, it is important to be sensitive to the impact that culture might have on managing conflict. He goes on to say that humans or things are not either this or that, rather they overlap. He says the ancient Chinese concepts of yin and yang illustrate this kind of thinking. Differences can be interactive and even complementary. Instead of simply focusing on differences, the concept of yin and yang reminds us to search for common ground. The author goes on to quote Deborah Tannen, who writes in her book, The Argument Culture, that Americans traditionally assume that opposition is the best way to get things done. As a result, people are inclined to settle their differences by resorting to debate, fighting, and lawsuits. And he says that this can be counterproductive. It not only forces people into two artificial opposing camps, but it may also alienate or exclude many other people. The author says that when you encounter conflict, you may choose to communicate, circumvent, confront, conform, compromise, or collaborate. He calls these the 6 C's to conflict management. Please take the time to review them in their entirety. The author also says that regardless of your approach to conflict management, you may not always be able to control your emotions. This makes it more difficult to compromise, collaborate, or even communicate. The following principles of conflict management will help you manage your emotions, relate to others, and maintain your focus. That concludes our audio lecture. Thanks for listening.